Hello and welcome to Bottom Line. The ILP issue is once again gaining momentum in the hill state of Meghalaya. The pressure groups are once again demanding early implementation of the inner line permit. The Chief Minister of the state, Conrad Sangma, only recently said that in his last visit to Delhi, when he called up with Union Home Minister Amit Shah, he did submit a letter, a memorandum on the issue. And of course, the MHA is still studying the pros and cons of the resolution that was adopted by the Meghalaya Assembly in the year 2019, unanimously for passing of the inner line permit. The centre is apparently studying the proposal and the impact it may have on neighbouring states. Mind you, Meghalaya is a state which through which other states are connected. Mizoram, Tripura, parts of Assam, vehicles have to pass through. So a lot of complications, probably not as easy as the states of Manipur, Arunachal, Nagaland. So a lot of things have to be taken into consideration before the matter is a decision on the matter is taken. But the pressure groups again, be it the KSU, the CoMSO, other groups are again becoming restless. We have had a black flag protest today, and things are gaining momentum. The pressure groups have already threatened to intensify the stir in the days and weeks to come if things do not move in the right direction. So is it going to be yet another showdown? Is it going to be yet another series of protests that we are going to witness? Because the centre is most likely to take some more time, maybe months or maybe a year more. You cannot say. It will be incorrect to comment on that, but it definitely seems by the way things are right now that the centre will definitely take some time to take a call on the ILP issue. To discuss more on the subject, I am being joined from Shillong by KSU President Lambok Marngar. Welcome Lambok to Bottom Line. Also, I am being joined from Shillong by Robertjune, Kharjarin, the General Secretary of the CoMSO. The KSU, the CoMSO have been spearheading the pro-ILP protests. Dr. Glen Kharkongor, Professor, MLCU, also joins me from Shillong. Thank you so much, all of you gentlemen, for coming on Bottom Line. If I can go straight to the KSU President first, Lambok Marngar. The State Assembly had passed a resolution as early as last year for the implementation of ILP, but nothing much has happened since, and we all know the current status. So, your thoughts on this?
When we are talking about this issue of ILP issue is not a new demand to implement in the state of Meghalaya. It's a long pending demand by the state of Meghalaya and especially people of Meghalaya that we are very concerned about the influx in the state of Meghalaya. Last year, on 19 December, the state government have already passed the resolutions and submit to the central government to get the approval for the implementation of ILP in the state of Meghalaya. But unfortunately, we don't know what is the reason behind with regards the delaying of the implementation of ILP in the state of Meghalaya. But we have saw the statement made by the Honorable Chief Minister Conrad Sangma after returning from Delhi. He told that the central government is still examining this resolution passed by the state government. So, from the various pressure groups in the state of Meghalaya, they expressed the disappointment with the attitudes and the delaying by the central government to implement the ILP in the state of Meghalaya. And we expect that the central government should respect the sentiment, the aspiration, the desire of the people of the state to implement the state ILP in the state of Meghalaya. Because ILP issue is not a new issue, it's not a new demand in the state of Meghalaya, as I said earlier. So, what is the problem of the central government to implement the ILP in the state of Meghalaya? Since they have already granted implementation of ILP in the state of Manipur. And ILP issue also is already implemented in Arunachal, Nagaland, Mizoram. So, as the engineers committee, we are a microscopic community. So we need the mechanism to protect our identity, language, culture, so on and so forth. So we hope that the central government should understand very clearly with regard to this protection of our identity, and we need mechanisms like ILP.
Point taken. Robertjune Kharjarin, when a resolution was passed in the Meghalaya Assembly last year, it seemed the implementation part may come as early as February or March. If you remember correctly, the anti-CA agitation was also on during that time. The centre, of course, was busy with negotiations, discussions with a lot of groups and NGOs, civil society bodies, pressure groups from the northeast on the CAA also. And of course, the Chief Minister Conrad Sangma, his cabinet colleagues did make several trips to Delhi during that time, and the Indian Home Ministry said yes, the matter is being examined, but it was hoped that by February, March maybe, the issue could be settled. Then we had the pandemic, of course, the COVID pandemic, and now it's almost a year, and it all seems to be back to square one, isn't it?
The thing is like this, if we talk about ILP as a mechanism and influx as an issue, if you look back into the history, if you see that the indigenous people of the state of Meghalaya, or let me put it in this way, that the indigenous people in the state of Kharkongor, Jentia Hill and Garo Hill, they have already expressed, even before the Borderloy subcommittee, which they feel that they are being afraid of being outnumbered on the own land. So they have already asked for a legislation, for a mechanism, for a law, which will be protect the indigenous people in the state, in this tribal hill, of being outnumbered in the own backyard, in the own land. So this issue, it had started right from the time of India getting an independence. And then now we go on. India will soon celebrate this 75 years of independence, and we as a state will celebrate 50 years of being a statehood. So you see, if we go to the ILP has been demanded a long time back. We have fought for a very, very long time, and we do hope that the union government will finally appreciate, will finally honor our aspiration, will finally honor the wish of the people. When the Meghalaya Legislative Assembly unanimously passed the resolution, we hope that the central government will honor it, will respect it, because there is nothing left to examine. Why I say so? If we talk from the legal point of views, this law is already implemented in 4 states. And the Honorable Guwahati High Court, in one of the cases, when some of the non-tribal organizations challenged this act, with regard to the implementation in Mizoram, the Honorable Guwahati High Court already upheld that this law is legally valid. And recently, the same government, it's implemented in the state of Manipur. What is there to be discussed left? Now, let's as you point in the beginning of the debate, that Meghalaya, is a transit state, whereas people has to pass through Meghalaya and go to other state. I think if that is an issue, then we can work out then we can work out the modalities. Then we can work out what kind of rule that the state of Meghalaya should frame while implementing the state. Some flexibility may be there, so that it will not affect the transit passenger passing the state of Meghalaya. To say that just because Meghalaya is a transit state, you can the tribal people in the state of Meghalaya is denial to have a law which will be protect our own identity, culture, lands, and so on and so forth. I don't think that it will be a justified reason.
Yeah, that is just one of the factors. Dr. Glen Kharkongor, every time there is a demand for ILP in the state, there is also a section. There's also a section which asks, is it required at this moment?
First of all, good evening to everyone, and thank you for having us on this panel. I'd like to begin by backtracking a little bit and To a large extent, I agree with the speaker, Mr. Lambok Malangia, what he just said. I think when we approach this topic, there are 2 points that we need to keep in mind as far as the context is concerned. One is that the history of influx in the Northeast has given us warning signals. We all know the example of Tripura and we know the example of Sikkim. So, small ethnic minorities in the Northeast have unfortunately been overrun by larger and dominant communities. So, that is the first point to keep in mind. The second one is the one of cultural identity. And in the Northeast, we are very proud of the diversity of different tribes that we have. And I think that it's very important for the sake of cultural identity and for preserving cultural values and practices, that these must be kept in mind. In India, we have a slogan that we keep teaching every generation of children about unity and diversity. So while we strive for unity, we mustn't forget the diversity part. The diversity and the protection and conservation of diversity is very important. Having said that, to go back to your question, is it required? Now, the 2 points that I have just mentioned need to be counterbalanced by the arguments that may come from the other side. The first argument is that we should not be in danger of succumbing to isolationism.
Absolutely.
Because isolationism.
Yeah.
So we should not fence ourselves off from the rest of the country so that we become isolated. One of the problems with isolation is that economic development may be hampered. So if there's no free movement of people and goods and services, then underdeveloped states like Meghalaya will suffer even further. So this is the balance and counterbalance of factors that we need to keep in mind. And I would, being a child of the 70s and believing in the music and lyrics and philosophies of people like John Lennon, remember that even having countries and boundaries between countries are anathema to that kind of philosophy. But on the balance of things, I think the first priority is cultural identity preservation and to make sure that we are not overrun by dominance of majority groups. And at the same time, make sure that economic development is not hampered and that we don't become cut off, from the rest of the world.
Absolutely, point taken. Lambok, Marngar, do you think the state government's responsibilities end at passing of a resolution? Passing the resolution in assembly is one thing, and pursuing the centre consistently on the issues. And do you see that happening from the state government side? Do you see the state government being proactive on the issue? Do you feel that there was a hurry in passing the resolution in the sense that the state government, wanted to put the ball in the centre's court in a way, maybe?
We cannot deny the facts that the state government also have a very important role to play and to pursue this matter aggressively with the central government. So not only the rolling set, now we talk all the 60 MLA have collectively take the decision to pass the resolution in the floor of the House last year, 19 December. So we expect the same that all the 60 MLA should pursue this matter with the central government aggressively, that the expectation and the desire, like I have said earlier, that the implementation of ILP in Meghalaya should be implemented immediately for the protection of all the illegal migrants who flow into the state of Meghalaya.
Absolutely. We are also being joined by former minister and senior Congress leader from Meghalaya, Ampareen Lyngdoh. Ampareen Lyngdoh, welcome to Bottom Line. Well, we were discussing the ILP issue, and are we staring at a situation where
I had got disconnected, so you have to recall me.
Okay, we are trying to reconnect. with Ampareen Lyngdoh. Robertjune Kharjarin, as Dr. Glen Kharkongor just mentioned, at the same time, we cannot be isolated. There's a theory which says that due to ILP, to an extent, say tourism in places like Arunachal, Nagaland has been affected. Meghalaya is one state, let's face it, where tourism is one of the mainstays. And the moment the ILP tag comes, probably things will fall in place in a few years' time. But initially, do you think there may be, this industry may take a hit? Investors may be discouraged. I'm mainly concerned about tourism. Let's keep it to tourism. Do we also have a backup plan in place to ensure that nobody is discouraged to visit the state once it has ILP?
Okay.
Because that is pretty important also.
This issue and this presumption which some of the people feel that if ILP is implemented, it will hamper the economics activity of the state and especially the tourism sectors. This issue has been dealt at length and has been discussed at length by the CSO and the state government times and again. And ILP is not a Berlin Wall. ILP is not something that we stop people to come into the state of Meghalaya. It is a legislation which regulates people who will come and settle in the state of Meghalaya. It's not something that the moment ILP is implemented, nobody should come into the state of Meghalaya. It's not that. It's merely a regulation which regulate the entry and exit of the people, and the main intention is that to prevent a person outside the state of Meghalaya from becoming a permanent resident of the state. That is the point. So with the technology that we have, now we can even apply EILP. If you see in the state of Arunachal Pradesh, if we want to go in the state of Arunachal Pradesh, what we can do is that we apply EILP. We submit our documents like EPIC, Aadhaar and others through the e-system, and we do not even need to stop at the check gate or entry gate. And clearance of ILP can also be done through the process of electronic. So I do not see that ILP in a modern context with the help of technology that it will lead to isolation of the indigenous people of the state of Meghalaya. I do not see that it will affect the tourism sector in the state of Meghalaya. I feel that ILP is a balanced legislation which will check that the indigenous people is not our number, and at the same time it will not further affect the economic and the tourism sector in the state of Meghalaya.
I'll get reactions from Dr. Glen Kharkongor on this, but before that, Ms. Ampareen Lyngdoh, welcome to Bottom Line. Is the state of Meghalaya yet again, getting ready for another long-drawn ILP agitation? Your predictions, ma'am? I think we have lost the line with Ms. Lyngdoh there. Dr. Glen Kharkongor, do you see that there is a reluctance on the part of tourists to go to a state where ILP is in place? I'm not saying that no one would go, but probably probably there could be a drop by a certain percentage, maybe a 10 to 20% drop. Even that's major. And should we have a plan, a comprehensive plan also ready at the same time to ensure that ILP does not become a deterrence for genuine Indians to come to Meghalaya? Are we also looking at those factors?
As you rightly pointed out, we need to actually be able to predict, quite accurately what effect an ILP may have on tourist traffic. Now, it may be that a friendly ILP protocol may not deter tourists from coming, but there may be a perception that Meghalaya is a difficult place to go to. However, I don't think that we can actually predict very accurately what may happen to the tourist traffic. And I'd like to go a little bit beyond that, because tourists are not the only people from outside the state who may want to come to Meghalaya.
Yes, we were coming to that. Yeah, go ahead, go ahead.
Yes, so I'd like to, for example, okay, say that Meghalaya is not self-sufficient in human resources. So when you look at, say, daily wage laborers who are needed to work at construction sites, or maybe even in the mines, okay, I don't think that we have enough workers who will actually run those. And we're talking about unskilled workers, maybe even unskilled, semi-skilled people like carpenters or plumbers and electricians. We are also not self-sufficient. But even when you go, higher up the ladder of various occupations and livelihoods, I don't think that we are even self-sufficient in professionals. For example, our universities, take NEHU for example, requires professors and faculty in different specialties who come from different parts of India. It's not only that this shortage needs to be alleviated, but also if there is a wide range of professionals from different backgrounds, it increases the richness of the professional environment. Okay? So this is also something that we should look at. Okay? Remember that demographics and economics are not static things. And we find, for example, that this year the International Monetary Fund predicted that the per capita GDP in Bangladesh would overtake India's. Now, this is really true, and there are several opinions about this. If this is really true, that means someday in the future, Bangladesh may be a richer society than India. And then the migration might happen in the opposite direction. So you might see Indians wanting to go to Bangladesh for better economic opportunities. So as we talk about issues like the one that is on the table this evening, we also need to remember that we also have to think of the future. So these are some of the other issues I think that need to be brought into so that we see a larger picture.
Absolutely. Those are very valid points you have made, especially the part of the unskilled laborers and professionals. These are something. Robertjune Kharjarin wants to say something. Yeah.
Make a rebut. You see, there is a misconception on ILP, and the misconception is that if ILP is implemented, laborers from outside the state of Meghalaya cannot be brought into the state. This is wrong. This is totally wrong. ILP is a regulation. It's not a Berlin Wall that will stop people coming into the state. You see, the other 4 states, Meghalaya, a genuine resident of Meghalaya can easily go and work in ILP state. As I tell you, the objective of ILP is that to prevent a non-Meghalaya citizen of becoming a permanent resident of the state. We are not going to stop doctors, professors, laborers coming into the state of Meghalaya. No, we will only regulate through ILP. How can we say that if ILP is implemented, these people will be stopped? This is a very wrong perception on ILP. And secondly is that when we talk about Bangladesh, I think we know that ILP is a regulation which will regulate an Indian citizen to come into our state. It's not about an international citizen. With regard to international citizen, we have something called the prohibited area permit and the restricted area permit, RAP and PAP.
No, that is there. We will quickly.
The thing is like this. We should not have a misconception that if
we will take this forward. We will take this forward. We will take this point forward.
Teach and in Mizoram and all. So this is a wrong perception on ILP.
We will take this point forward, Robertjune Kharjarin, but let me get the first comments from Ms. Ampareen Lyngdoh, who has just joined us a short while back. Ms. Lyngdoh, the Congress's stand on the entire issue.
I would be repeating myself substantially on this matter, but nevertheless, since you have asked, I just briefly heard what other panelists also commented. And that was the reason why this entire demand for the ILP for the state of Meghalaya was something that was just not coming through. So, having seen that there were all these difficult situations that would arise and that would, to some extent, uh, cause inconvenience, especially to fellow Indians who want to come to the state of Meghalaya for whatever reason, whether it's a short stay, a long stay. The Congress party, during our regime of governance, had thought that it would be fitting, therefore, to have a state owned mechanism that would enable us to ensure that this entire fear of the people of the state of being overwhelmed and the demographic statistics of the state getting compromised, we had come out after long consultations with stakeholders of the entire community. We had come out with the Meghalaya Resident Safety and Security Act, which would be some form of a mechanism that would try to certain extent control the overstay of unknown individuals in communities across the state. But then when we came back after the elections of 2018, we were put in the opposition because of the mandate of the people, though we are 19 in numbers. And we were surprised to see that the government of the day then brought out its government resolution for the implementation of ILP in the state of Meghalaya. So, having seen especially that in the recent aftermath of the implementation of CAA, that the government of India had accorded the implementation of the ILP in the state of Manipur without the government demanding for such an implementation, we thought that it would be apt for us to rethink our stand and to again support the resolution that was brought by the government last year. Now, it was not us who said we are bringing you the ILP. It was this government that had promised the people. In the entire ambit of the CAA, it has become imperative that in a state like Meghalaya, as much as in a state like Manipur and other states where ILP has already been implemented and has been implemented for a long time, it would be in the fitness of things that Meghalaya too should be brought under the ambit of the Act. So that's just
so the Congress,
stand of
Congress
the government,
stands by that.
of the Congress.
We'll have to take a very, very short break here. Stay on. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. You're watching Bottom Line. We're discussing the ILP issue, the demand for ILP in the hill state of Meghalaya. If I can go back to Ms. Ampareen Lyngdoh. Ms. Ampareen Lyngdoh, Dr. Glen Kharkongor, who is also in the panel from the MLCU, has raised a very pertinent, important point that ILP is not just about what many assume deterring tourists. It's an assumption we say because, well, we have to wait and watch what happens till it is implemented. So let's assume that, it's an assumption for now. But what he says is that Meghalaya is a state which requires both skilled and unskilled workers, a constant flow. And, ILP may create an issue on that if things are not regulated properly. I'm sure that's what he meant. Your thoughts on that, Ampareen Lyngdoh?
There are so many states in the northeastern region where ILP is already and has already been implemented for many decades. I don't see which factor of skill or unskilled labor that has been affected. I don't see how doctors cannot go to the state of Mizoram, Glen. I don't see any of that being affected. So right now, it's just because the state of Meghalaya has not been heard by the central government. It has not been heard, and there has been this undue, ignoring of the problem. So I feel that it is just a perception. The people of the state and also the demographics of the state have shown some amount of decline. So we need to keep some system in place for check and balance. And I don't think that if it is not happening in other states where ILP is already being implemented, it will affect us in any way. In fact, it will the people of the state will have this regaining of confidence, regaining of a sense of security, and there will be stringent checking in place, because especially we share an international border, a very long international border with the neighboring country of Bangladesh. So that's my take. I don't think we should have any problem.
You think it's not going to affect Robertjune, Kharjarin? Of course, you had a point to make last time, but let's be honest. We all are aware Meghalaya, for a state, has a lot of groups, pressure groups, NGOs. Sometimes we have, the groups themselves, of course, under the existing circumstances, putting up entry and exit points on their own, especially in the border districts bordering Assam. Can the pressure groups also assure the government? Okay, once the ILP is implemented, anybody with a valid ILP, of course, the process will be smooth and there will be no problems. It will be a smooth process. There should not be any scope for more exit entry points coming up randomly. I'm not saying that these are known pressure groups who are doing it, but well, there have been instances, let's face it, let's be honest about it, where people have find it difficult to enter the state, sometimes groups themselves setting up their checkpoints. Can you ensure that doesn't happen? And that has to be the collective decision and an assurance of all the groups, all the pressure groups. Robertjune, Kharjarin.
You see why the pressure group try to set up the checkpoint by themselves is because we do not have a system in place. It's because we do not have a law in place to protect ourselves. So we did not have a law to protect ourselves. Can we go and say that, okay, we'll being outnumbered on our own land? Because we have demand from the state government, and the government has passed a resolution. Now it is the time for the central government to honor it, to implement it. So if the central government refuse to implement it, refuse to honor the aspiration of the indigenous people of the state of Meghalaya, what left do we have? We have to take law into our hand, obviously. But if ILP is implemented, this ILP will be handled and managed by the state authority, like the deputy commissioners, the police. They may involve the local authority, like the Dorbasnong, to implement it. So if the state government has implemented, why should we go and interfere with the state government implementation of a law? So I see the moment ILP is implemented, it will give a lot of relief to the indigenous people of the state. We will finally find peace, and from now on we will pursue to the issue like development, education, agriculture, and other things, which is also important issue in the state of Meghalaya. So I feel that the moment ILP is implemented, this unwanted situation, as you rightly see, will automatically be disappear from the state of Meghalaya.
Dr. Glen Kharkongor, now coming to another point that also often comes up for discussion every time there is a demand for ILP. There is a murmur always, every time, within the state of Meghalaya, maybe even outside, that the non-tribals in the state may feel a bit threatened by it. Threatened is not exactly the word, but can we assure the genuine non-tribals, the residents who have been there, who own land, who have been there for decades now, they are by no means at the receiving end once it is implemented? Dr. Kharkongor.
Many of these societal issues and societal phenomena can't be addressed by simple question and a simple answer, because these are deep-rooted issues. And when we look at the history of the Northeast, to go back in history, unfortunately, there have been very dark chapters in the history of the Northeast. I referred earlier to how we are all familiar with how the tribal people of Tripura were overrun after independence, how the people of Sikkim, the original inhabitants, have also been reduced to a minority. We also have movements of refugees, internecine conflicts, refugee camps. This movement, of demographics in the Northeast, unfortunately has resulted in the marginalization of many small ethnic minorities. So this is the big picture that we must keep in mind. Now, when we talk about those who are from outside the region and them coming in, if the question is merely that will they feel comfortable, will they feel threatened, to me that's a small issue in the big picture. The big picture must not be forgotten. And if the character of the culture of the Northeast and its diversity of its people is to be preserved, and if cultural identity is to be given importance, then all these things must be viewed in balance. Society is a very complex model. It doesn't lend itself to simple questions and answers. When it comes to the ILP, suppose ILP is really brought into the state, what really will matter is two things. One is the details of the provisions and the various clauses. So the fine print will be very important. That needs to be articulated very well. And after that job is done, the second thing is how well and how effectively is it implemented? Because we know in India, nothing works really as it is supposed to.
Absolutely.
There are loopholes. There are people who bypass provisions. Our own people will cut corners, and make excuses and do things that serves a personal priority or a personal vested interest. So people from top to bottom in our society will be the first people to circumvent some of these things. So one really needs to look at the big picture, which is a very complex one. But I think I don't really have much more to say on this topic, except that we must never forget the dark history of the Northeastern peoples. Maybe ILP is a solution, maybe ILP is not the solution. But at the same time, we have to find some solution that will preserve cultural diversity, that will preserve cultural identity, and that the small ethnic minorities of the country really feel safe and protected. That's very important.
Absolutely, very, very valid point there. Ms. Ampareen Lyngdoh, again, when we talk about the diversity of the Northeast, the diversity of the state of Meghalaya, also the non-tribals, the old-timers also form a part of it. Old-timers also form a part of the diversity. Do you see those pushing for the ILP also in a way, at least as a gesture, trying to reach out to them as well, take them into confidence, which will be a perfect kind of scenario, you know, a perfect scenario where every genuine resident of Meghalaya comes on board for the ILP. Do you see that happening? And what are the complications?
See, the very fact that we are having this conversation about tribals and non-tribals. The people of the state of Meghalaya are broadly based in two different categories. One is the tribal indigenous and one is the others who are also indigenous inhabitants of the state of Meghalaya. So the very fact that the moment you mention ILP, this segregation of community comes out, that in itself is very petty. You know, the people of Meghalaya are not anti-national. They are not anti-Indian.
Absolutely.
And this picture of us being anti-Indian has to stop. Because like any other country in this world, there are always these issues that continue to be raised from time to time. It's not as if the Northeast on its own is in isolation from the rest of India. And let me assure you one thing. There is no genuine resident of the state of Meghalaya, irrespective of whether he is tribal or non-tribal, that does not have a sense of belonging in this state.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Of late,
that is why it's that much
late,
more important to take those people on board. That's what I meant. Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah.
When we say that consultations have taken place prior to the installation of the Meghalaya Resident Safety and Security Act, there has been no one community who's indigenous to the state of Meghalaya that was not called in for a consult. So we need to now put this behind us and stop looking at the state of Meghalaya as one that is going to be anti-national. We are not anti-national. We may not speak the Indian language. Not everybody may be fluent in speaking the national language, but we are Indians and we respect all Indians. Now, the only thing that we would like to see happen is that because of the proximity of our state to another country like Bangladesh, and because of the cultural nearness of people from that country and people from our own country, there could be miscreants who try to enter the state under this pretext of being Indian and wanting to get into our communities, marry into our communities, and therefore endanger the uniqueness of the fabric of our community. We just want to make sure that there should be a check and balance.
Point taken.
And to say that it is only happening in the state of Meghalaya is wrong. Because you've just seen the recent big arguments and debates that happen in many metropolitan cities like the capital city of Delhi. We have also seen that people call us cheeky. But that does not mean we'll go and endorse and retaliate. We are a peace-loving community. We will definitely make sure
Absolutely.
that any original indigenous inhabitant of this state will get equal access to law, development.
Absolutely. That
and
has to be a
equal
collective.
access to everything.
Absolutely. That has to be a collective
Of course.
responsibility. Yeah.
Of course.
Yes.
course.
Lambok Marngar, as you have already mentioned, ILP is not a new demand. The demand has been there for over 3 decades. In the state of Meghalaya. According to the Chief Minister Conrad Sangma, the centre is still deliberating over the pros and cons of the proposal of the resolution. Will it be right to say, you have to be ready probably for another long drawn ILP agitation in the state?
See, I don't see any problem to implement the ILP in the state of Meghalaya. The only thing is there be political will both from the central government and respect the resolution passed by the state government. So, since we have continued our struggle to demand the implementation of ILP in the state of Meghalaya since 1929, and we will continue to express, to apprise our grievances, especially the influx issue, that we need mechanism, we need the ILP to control and check the influx into the state of Meghalaya. So if the state central governments think that there is many obstacle from all the angles, then what is the problem of central government since the ILP has already implemented the state of Manipur? So what is the problem only in the state of Meghalaya? If they treat us as the indigenous community, if the central government show that they have the responsibility to protect our identity and to safeguard our language, culture, so on and so forth, I think ILP issue should be implemented in the state.
Mr. Marngar, the KSU and 7 other groups also held a protest in Malki ground. Today we had a protest from CoMSO, and you have threatened to intensify the agitation in the days to come. Apart from the KSU and other groups, there is also the CoMSO, which is spearheading the movement. Are all pressure groups, civil societies, NGOs on the same page, ready to join hands, which I believe is the case as far as the fight for ILP is concerned? I'm sure you don't have any ideological differences. Lambok Marngar, I'll also take a reaction from Robertjune Kharjarin after that.
Well, see, since all the pressure group in the state of Meghalaya, we are on the same page. Why I have said that we are on the same page? Because we are on the same stand. All the pressure group we demand to implement the ILP issue in the state of Meghalaya. Yet we might have a different program, different agitation, but we are on the same page that the pressure groups and the people of the state of Meghalaya, we need the ILP.
All pressure groups are united. Robertjune Kharjarin, from what Chief Minister Conrad Sangma said upon his return from Delhi, it seems things may take a few months more, even a year. What are your plans, the CoMSO? Of course, you had a protest today, and will we see intensified protest in December? Because it looks almost certain that the centre may take some more time. Or will you seek a further assurance from the state government, maybe to give a time frame by when probably you can expect some response from the centre?
First of all, to your first question is that yes, you hear me? Yes.
Yes.
With regard to the first question, as you asked me, yes, of course, we the pressure group in Meghalaya, as of now, we are not under the same banners, or we are not under the same flag. But the issue we demand is one. We have one voice, and that voice is that we want ILP in the state of Meghalaya. So there is no ideologically different. There is no differences on the issue of that we demand. We are on the same page. We are on the same issue that we want ILP. We may be different in organization. We may have different agitation. We may have different mode of program. But yes, we are on the same page, and we are united when it comes to the issue. That is the first thing. The second issue is that, as I tell you, is that there is no plan from CoMSO to stop agitation whatsoever from day one. But the only thing is that of the pandemic stopped us to agitate for ILP. It's not that we wish to stop agitation, but we cannot raise the issue of COVID by agitation in a big scale. We have to respect the protocol of the government. We have to believe in the instruction given by the health department. So, as of now, we have seen that the COVID situation in the state is improving day by day. So, on the 4th of December, we will have a sit-in demonstration, and later on, we will further intensify the agitation if the central government is still adamant on the issue that we demand. If the other indigenous people of the northeast state of Meghalaya deserve to protect their own identity, why not us? We are not second-class Indian. We are also the indigenous people in the state of Meghalaya. So we hope that the central government will honor our aspiration. We have fought for too long. For almost 3 decades. So it's high time for the Union Government of India to finally
absolutely hoping for a response soon. I'm running out of time. Dr. Glen Kharkongor, your parting words, parting remarks, what should be the ideal way forward, and how do you see the situation? Very quickly.
Just a few comments in closing. I'm not in politics, so I'm not the one to say, what are the steps to be taken forward. There are many levels on which this issue can be discussed. There's a political level, there's an economic level, there's a cultural level. I'd like to close with an appeal that we all look at it in human terms. And as the ethnic minorities, need to feel protected and they need to have their cultural identity preserved. At the same time, we should also be mindful that all those who are within our midst also need to feel safe. Okay? And so as human to human, I think these considerations must be uppermost in our mind.
Absolutely. Ampareen Lyngdoh, last words.
Needs to be urgently implemented in the state of Meghalaya because of the implementation of the CAA. I think that I would like one message to go to our friends from civil society. Every democracy requires some form of protest on issues which are not addressed. But we must ensure that we must maintain peace. We must ensure that individuals do not, there is no feeling of insecurity in the community. And we cannot dealing politics from ILP. It is part and parcel of ILP. And I think that the state of Meghalaya needs to put the issue of security of the indigenous communities at rest. And since this government of the day has promised the people that, you will have to deliver.
Absolutely, point taken. End of the day, the stage looks set for a lingering ILP agitation, but let's hope that things fall into place. ILP, as most of our panelists feel, is important for the protection of the indigenous communities. But again, everyone in the state should feel secure and genuine. That's a wrap.